All right, welcome back. Thank you very much. I'm Bill Quinn. I am very honored to be joined today by Major General Paul Vallely, retired from the U.S. Army. Thank you for being here, General.
Thank you, Bill.
And and Sheila Holm, internationally recognized author, researcher, and speaker. And we've had several episodes recently with Sheila as she delves into her most recent book. So thank you both for being here.
Yeah, it's great. Sheila, is my new best friend.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, General Vallely, we were in touch back, I don't know if he remembers any of this, 22 and 23 with the whole Todd calendar thing and emails and et cetera about Sinaloa and Geronimo because of what I experienced in San Diego. But I was just connecting with his team that were working on those kinds of things because of my identity theft and dealing with these infiltrators that are coming into San Diego. And so I've been so honored with his information for so many years. And I am so deeply honored, sir, that you're connecting with me on this information to help get the truth to the people across our nation. It's a deep honor for me.
It feels like a very important time, doesn't it? I mean, there's
very important. Yeah.
There's an amazing amount of confusion. There's an amazing amount of both false information and potentially very valid information. And it is, I believe, in part our job to try to help people make sense of it. So thank you both again for being here. One of the reasons I wanted to bring us together today was because yesterday you had both co-authored a piece which is now published on the General's Substack, and we will post the URL to reach that. But it is a request for pardon of innocence. And I wanted to learn more about how this came about, the goals of what is being asked for, and perhaps next steps that we could ask of those who could make change. So let me then turn it over to, I guess, General, we'll start with you first, if we may.
Well, I've been working on the J6 situation since J6. That was propagated by Nancy Pelosi and others to create an event that they wanted to portray as a coup in the United States and frame Trump for that. But Trump, in granting clemency to the J6ers, still wasn't completely done. Many of, as Sheila's pointed out, and in our article, there's a lot of innocence there, but they were tried in courts in New York, in Washington, D.C., which are democratically controlled courts. And the J6ers that went to those courts and then were later sentenced to federal prisons were completely dominated by a democratically controlled jury. So no matter what the lawyers put up as defense for these individuals that were being tried, was totally false and was a fraud. And so what Sheila and I are trying to do now is resurrect any of those J6ers that are still being punished and have not received total clemency. And many of them, they went bankrupt. They lost their families. I don't know how many suicides, Sheila, but quite a number of suicides. I talked to them in a direct link into the gulag there in Washington, D.C. way back when we launched Operation Jericho, really to free them from these prisons and the trials. But what a travesty that Nancy Pelosi and the left-wing ideologues created back then, really to counter Trump and to use these J6ers as symbols of far right extremists, patriots, whatever they called them. They were Americans protesting. And they try to portray that people were killed. No, there was some that died. One of the policemen, I think Sheila, died of a heart attack. And they try to create this vision, this image that these J6ers were in there to kill people. The police let them in. They went in. Now, some of them got raucous. I mean, they destroyed some things, windows. And then you had a individual, the only one killed was Ashley Babbitt by that rogue police officer detective in the inside the Capitol. He still should be tried for murder, in my opinion. So
That's right.
anyhow, that's sort of an overview, Bill.
Okay. So a couple of questions. One, given all the information and video that's come out in the last couple of years, many people are still just now, in some cases, learning that, as you said, there were some people, perhaps folks that were positioned in order to try to stir things up, as it were. But there were many people that wandered in sort of innocently thinking, well, they have the doors open. It looks like it's okay for us to go in. And there's pictures of them going through the rotunda, staying behind the velvet cordons to, acting very peaceably. There's people taking photos with the Capitol Police that are inside and guarding the facilities. And yet, over the course of these years, there's been, I believe, if I've read your piece correctly, there's nearly 1,600 folks that have been directly impacted by charges associated with what happened that day. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, Sheila can elaborate more on that, but that's absolutely true. And so it's not only the individuals who were there in a protest, but it was also the extended families, the wives, the girlfriends, the children. This grossly impacted a lot of different people because of this fraudulent event created by Nancy Pelosi and others.
And it continues to impact them today in many cases, doesn't it? Because
that's right.
Some of the stories are heart-wrenching. Folks, as you say, have lost families. Mm-hmm. Some are still in desperate financial condition because they can't get a job.
Some of them still can't get a job. Nobody will hire them because they were connected to the J6.
Yep. And again, it comes down to folks not really, in all cases at least, not everybody understands what really happened versus what the narrative has been constructed as by the mainstream media and those who wanted this to look a particular way.
Correct.
Sheila, if you look at this, you've done so much work on uncovering the truth underlying this and other things. How close do you think we can get to getting people to really understand the work that's remaining to be done here to help these people, to try to provide restitution and so forth? And who do we need to get to, do you think?
Well, it's been layers. A pardon of innocence would have to come from the president. They received a pardon. There are 9 that still are not pardoned that we're aware of. But again, we have no figures from the DOJ. This has all been boots on ground, adding everything up, keeping everyone's emails, the care packages, the letters that were written. And now several people, we can't even get a hold of them because they can't even afford a cell phone. We have guys that are out in the woods that are waiting several days or weeks to set up $17 to go into the park and use a shower. And so many of them had better conditions to at least get 3 meals a day and a place to shower and a place to lay down in a bed that had temperatures controlled. They don't have any of that. A lot of them don't have any of that. So trying to keep in touch with them. And that was, I'll give you the 2 sides for me. And the whole thing, this is so, people wonder why it's so emotional for me. And when I started bringing David Sumrall, who did the videos, and he has a catalog of all the videos, and Trennis Evans, who learned the legal stuff I did in San Diego and credits me as getting the legal stuff together to get the pardon of innocence and other documentation he's been able to do. Because as a citizen, we can do all these things. I'm just a civilian. I never became an attorney. And I handled so many cases. I can't represent other people, but I can represent a matter. And so what happened is in my ministry emails, I just received an email, and a young man, highly decorated Marine, sent an email in and just said, "Can I have prayer?" And it's like, "So what did you want prayer for?" And he said that his family had departed from him because he was at J6 and they were raided, and the raids were horrible. And so now he had lost the respect of his parents. They had departed from him. He lost his wife. She divorced him. She took control of the children. And so he said, this has all happened because now what they're saying is the best plea deal I can get is 18 months. And he didn't do anything. And everybody forgot that's the people's house. That Capitol is supposed to be the people's house.
That's right.
And the people were invited in. And so the relationship to where I was at and bringing David and Trennis on all of these interviews back in 22, 23, and people were telling me, Sheila, stop this. It's just a movie. We're just watching a movie. Because remember how everybody was hearing it's a movie. It's going to be a great show. Buy more popcorn. All that was going on. Yeah. Nobody wanted to believe how horrible this was. They didn't want to believe that there were men who left this country and did podcasts from other countries. They've now come back. But they left because they weren't going to serve prison terms. And can you show the pictures of the military people?
I can indeed.
Because people don't understand. We had Green Beret, we had SEALs, we had top Delta Force, we had, because they took out top guys in our nation from all the services. And these are just the ones we know of, because we're only able to keep track of the ones who stayed in touch with us. And so that's the Army, that's the Marines, and then there's another one for the Air Force and the Navy.
There we are.
It's just, and those guys, what people don't understand is they haven't had the right to vote. And they served our country to protect our constitutional rights. They went to D.C. to protect our constitutional rights because of the 2020 election, but it's the 2016 election too. And they have records going back 20 elections that are going to prove to the people we haven't had a vote for many, many elections. So here are our military guys who fought for this in all these other lands, come back home, realize how bad things are here at home, go there to make a statement and say, we've got to protect our constitutional rights. They're invited in. And the main thing is people don't understand. We're a corporation. And so we were a corporation. It's all getting straightened out, but we were a corporation. So whether you stand in front of an abortion clinic, or you stand in front of Congress when they say Congress was in session, God bless our president. He came late, really late. He spoke really long. They couldn't get to the Capitol and while the Congress was in. All, I hope, done on purpose, because he didn't want these people arrested. He wanted them to be able to have their voice. He wanted them to be able to know the truth and show the impact to our Congress of how many people in America are not happy with what's going on. And we had the right to be there. And so in this whole process, they're arrested for interfering with commerce, a proceeding. They obstructed a proceeding. That's what almost all of them were arrested for. Raids on their homes, multiple armored vehicles, SWAT teams. They never went through the county sheriff. So all of these things from the beginning, you're supposed to go through the county sheriff. They're higher than the FBI. FBI is not even part of the Constitution. That's what we've been talking about, Bill, in our last interview, and we were going to do that today, but we'll get back to it. But the FBI isn't even in our Constitution. That was all created. And all of these bureaus that were created, all of these people have had a control over us. Now, my experience in what I went through putting judges in prison in San Diego and then fighting all of it myself with the FBI, my family trusted the FBI. I trusted the FBI. I did everything they told me to do, and none of it was the truth. I didn't know. I really didn't know. And my dad understood from being an Army medic in World War II. He understood the battle. And I said, how can I understand what to do in this? And he said, Sheila, you were never trained. I was trained. And their problem is you don't even know who the enemy is. I knew who the enemy was. So he said, I had advantages you don't have. But I'm very concerned for you because you're letting people jump in your foxhole and you're never going to know who has your back until the shooting starts. And what I had to learn, we don't have rights. In identity theft, citizens didn't have any victim rights because we weren't victims. J6ers are not victims. We were both witnesses. The difference, we didn't witness anything in identity theft and what they did to us to destroy us and our businesses and lose our homes. When they did that, it was in the underbelly of the credit bureau system. I didn't know who was doing it, how they were doing it, who was involved, what they were doing to me. I didn't know. I had to research all of this. What was the difference in J6? They weren't victims either. The victims were considered the citizens in D.C. The citizens in D.C. were at work or they were at home. They didn't have anything. They didn't come down. They didn't come down to have their voice known. They weren't there. And so these victims, and now because they were witnesses, because they used their voice, because they used a megaphone, they were arrested. Because their cell phone pinged on a tower, they were arrested. But they seemed to handpick all of the voices to have stop all the conservative voices, stop the military voices, stop all of these voices, organizations. People were arrested from oath keepers. They were arrested from Proud Boys. They weren't even in DC on that day, and they were still arrested and sent to prison. And they weren't even physically in DC. This was something to stop the voice of the people. And guys, this is not a show. It was never done as a show. All of this is the truth. And we can't do anything. We can't get any restitution. That's why the president said he's going to provide restitution for those destroyed by the 3-letter F agency and their agents. And so I'm holding on for that. But we haven't had a voice because they changed the structure that we're not a victim. And when all these things happen, not only are we not a victim, we can't even be a participant in resolving any of it because we're not in that camp. We have no voice. And so they not only remove the voice of all those guys, and then here's our military. And I'm glad you showed those pictures because that's just a few that I know about. When you show that picture, none of them got to vote in 22. None of them got to vote in 24. And if we don't clean this up, they may not get to vote in 26 or 28 because they're still considered a felon and a criminal. That's why they can't get a job. The difference with pardon of innocence means you didn't get due process. There wasn't a crime. It wasn't something that you did. Because we still have 9 guys that still are not free, that the judges are still adding enhancements and telling them they're going back to prison. And we just had another suicide 2 weeks ago.
And if I understood correctly, even those that have been released may not have been now deemed innocent to the extent that they can regain the rights that you're discussing. Is that right?
Right. They're still a felon, still a criminal. So the stigma on the whole family is everything General Vallely was telling you. The impact goes out into their grandparents, aunts, and uncles on both sides of the family. And that's why I estimated it at 20 to 30 per person that are at least impacted. It could be 60 to 80. But just if it's 20 to 30, and just if it is 1,600, that's 32 to 48,000 people in America whose lives were completely stripped of any opportunity to figure out what to do. We have a family that lost a 200-year-old farm, and nothing's been done to help them restore.
Nearly as old as the country itself.
Well, also, I mean, the reason we've put this article out for publication across the country, I'm not sure President Trump has been updated by his staff on the status of the J6ers. We need Stephen Miller or somebody to get behind this, surface it again, and make sure there is innocence proven and the pardon of innocence. We need to bring this to the surface again because it's not solved, as Sheila has pointed out.
So much of this has been the miscarriage of justice, I think is perhaps a good way to put it. The fact that they, when they were incarcerated in DC itself, many couldn't access even their counsel, attorneys to support them.
It was a gulag.
It was. And I recall one gentleman, I believe, was beaten and I believe lost sight in an eye. I mean, these things don't happen, you wouldn't think, in an American jail, but in fact did. And
well, it was a gulag. They were horrible, those police officers, men and women. They had one woman there. I guess she was an instigator of a lot of the violence within the gulag there against the J6ers. I can't remember her name, Sheila may. But, and then you had an initial a visit there. Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few others went over.
I recall.
One day, of course, they couldn't get in, but then nothing else happened. We tried to get our congressman and some others involved in taking action at that time. No members of Congress or the Senate would move to help them. Not one movement after we highlighted everything with the release that we did then. And that's what really, and then everything disappeared off the radar until now that we've serviced it again.
Well, that lack of action, that silence, if you will, we've seen it here in Georgia. We've seen it in other states around the country. That is an answer in and of itself, isn't it? When folks refuse, neglect, but in my mind, refuse to do the right thing. They know what the right thing is to do. They know that this requires attention and action. And
but once it goes off the radar with everything else that's going on, there's nobody further looking at it. And that's what happened. Somebody dropped the ball within the administration after the clemency.
yeah.
Well, I don't think people keep wanting to blame President Trump.
Yeah.
We're not in a kingdom. He's not a dictator. And we, the people, have to initiate what we want them to respond to. We forget that they're all our employees, not just the president. All in Congress are our employees. All in the bureaus are our employees. All within all the 405 departments they've added in recent decades. All of those belong and report to us. We have the opportunity to request, and my concern is people going to DC on 9/11. That's when they want to go and protest the status of it, because it's an ugly status. And these are, a majority of them are men who served and sacrificed their lives and lost a lot of friends in the wars. President Trump, I think, has kept us, and I don't have the data, General Vallely, so I may need to be corrected. I think he has saved us from about 6 wars already, and I think he's working on number 7. And people want him to just figure out what all of us need. There's no way to figure out what the J6ers need, because there's such an upset and an anger about this whole process. And he can't come in and just clean up the justice system and clean up the DOJ, clean up all of these things. People have no idea this depth of evil was planned against us when we were formed as a nation. We've never been independent. We've never been free until he got the surrender of the Queen in 2017. That is the first time that she took off her glove, put it on her left wrist, and then followed him, just like Charles did after, as a puppy dog when he inspected the guard. We're done. And he changed all of that. But we the people have to make the request, because if we make the request and nothing happens, we still have redress of grievance. That's where we forget that the Supreme Court is a people's court.
Yeah,
And they
all
don't
we
make
want to
law,
do
but we
now,
can take it to them.
Sheila, all we want to do now is get him to put somebody on point, as we call it in the military, put somebody back in charge, like Miller, for example, who's really a good guy of chasing down these things. And that's what I would do. I'd put Stephen Miller in charge, say, okay, what's happening with the J6ers? We haven't solved the situation, the problem yet. And Trump is a problem solver. He deals in reality. So if you give them the reality of what the status is right now, then he'll appoint somebody. And that's what we're trying to promote right now.
To your point, it was Mr. Miller that gave an initial quick assessment of what was happening in Washington as control began to be exerted over the police and the governance of the city itself. And he had done the math and done the research to find out that within very short order, they had gone through a period with no murders. And in talking to the authorities, nobody could remember a time when they'd had a period of time go by when there weren't any murders in Washington, D.C. What an amazing accomplishment. And it was Mr. Miller that uncovered that. So I think you're exactly right. It's a point person like that sounds like the right step. Yeah.
Now, if we look at these military guys again, I'll just take them as an example, because we have sheriffs that served prison terms. We have, and that's why I said law enforcement and the police. If we look at our military guys, a lot of them were still serving. So they all lost their military rights. Many of them lost their pensions. Nobody's been restored. And if they had that income and then could use that to get their lives back on track, to get a job with the pardon of innocence, do you see what I mean? There's layers to this. So I love Miller. I love Miller. He's so great. And I'm wondering if Pete Hegseth might want to take the challenge of this. And I don't know if that's appropriate, General, for Pete Hegseth to look at their military history and make sure that they're not taken out of getting their pay or back pay, because they should be being compensated in some way. And I don't know how that whole thing works, but is it Pete Hegseth? If Pete is aware of this, like we're trying to make Trump aware of it, then he can do some of those things. It's within his authority to do that. And then all of that is in the summary.
Head of the Veterans Administration for the veterans. So they all can play a part and a refocus on this terrible situation of lawfare against these people, and a plot by the left-wing Democrats to set them up. And that's exactly what they did. They set them up.
Sheila, you had mentioned a few minutes ago a planned gathering in Washington. Is that surrounding essentially the same issue? Is it a J6 oriented gathering? How is that coming together?
I didn't know it was coming together until Labor Day, and when the announcement came on a Twitter tweet from the key people who were asking everybody to come on 9/11, I immediately got a hold of them, and I said, "This is not a good idea." And it's not a good idea to be protesting. People have no idea how strong it is that people want to eliminate Trump's voice, because if they eliminate Trump's voice because they're so mad that he's finding out all these things that have been hidden from us for so long, and he's revealing it. They've never been exposed and revealed, and now all of it's being exposed and revealed. People on the ground, people across America watching TV every night, taking the weekend off and just relaxing. They're not aware of a lot of the stuff that's going on that's fighting against him. And that's why when I found this out on Labor Day, I stayed up all night that night and started putting all the data together, putting the facts together, looking at what they need. And I'm volunteering. When I got that call that email from that Marine, and then I called him and found out his situation. Now we are at the end of this, and they found out that he was pardoned. We can't find him. And he's the phone number I have, the email I have, we can't find him. So did he take his life? And that's why I don't know how many have committed suicide, because they had nothing to go to when they were put in prison. And so they have nothing to return to. So they have no support unit around them, because everybody believed the FBI. Everybody believed the committee. That J6 committee was totally a sham, all lies against them. So the families believed that. So turning that around, and that's why I think we need, and it's in the article from us, that we need public awareness, because people are still telling me you're still beating on the same drum, Sheila, and it's a movie. Just buy more popcorn, and it's like this is not a movie. This is reality, guys. This is what we've lived through.
These people are getting harmed.
Yeah, I was without a home for 12 years, all because of what they did to me. I couldn't do anything. If you look at my income record, is completely sham. It's only God that's brought me through. Only God that's brought me through. And
if I had you here in Montana, Sheila, you would have been protected.
See, now I find out. And thank you, General. That's a very nice offer. My family didn't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do, because why is all this happening to Sheila? And they thought it was just happening to Sheila. And that's why when I got that Sinaloa from you, General, and that was in 22, 23, I kept sending it out. I looked at my emails this week, and I've got General Vallely on Sinaloa. I've got so many copies of Sinaloa that went out, and they're still in. I never removed any of those emails. I had no idea that all that was still there, because it was the only way I could prove to people that we were dealing with these cartels, and they were being funded by our government. and I couldn't get anyone to listen. I couldn't get anyone to care about it. And that's why I'm so grateful. If just that one piece of the president bringing the leaders of those cartels into our country to deal with them, because they're going to reveal who's been funding them. They're going to reveal how these things happen, because they want to save their families. And I couldn't explain to my family, and I didn't want to burden my family, because I'm an adult. And so you just keep burrowing through it. And so with no income, the only answer is God. And that's why I can write these books, is because, guys, I've lived it. I've seen how all this happens. I can explain all of it. God gave me the insights and the people to contact. I know the underbelly of all these systems. I know how they're doing it. But this has gone on since the beginning of our nation. None of this, everybody thinks it's the last 5 presidents. Wait till you find out that the last 5 presidents, maybe Clinton's parents were American, his dad. He's a Rockefeller, so who knows? But Bush 41 didn't qualify. Bush 43 didn't qualify. It's not just Obama. And going back, how many more? But in researching those, because I got tired of hearing, Sheila, it's just the last 5 presidents. We can get this turned around easily. It's not an easy process.
No, it's not.
So as it relates to this event that you were speaking of that's coming up next week, the 10th potentially for the one that's being called by the Tea Party, and then the 11th for this other event being called into Washington, D.C. Is there a concern? Do you have a concern that this, in just like J6, could be either used or manipulated to look as if it's something that needs to be reacted to? Is that potentially one of the concerns here?
Well, my concern about 9/11 is going to DC. I said, if you give me some time, I'll get some people together. And what we'll do is let's do a Zoom and let's have people from all the different communities find out who the J6ers are and let's start helping people. It's up to we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. We don't understand. We want a republic, but we don't understand how to be in one or operate in one. And so if we will do that, if we do a Zoom and we get community people and do that, that's what we have to do. To go to DC to protest the president after we went to DC to protest the Congress. I mean, are you kidding me? DC is not our friend. DC was taken over. What did they have a right in 1792 to become a National Democratic Socialist Party out of nowhere and move us from the Federal Hall in New York, the America city that everyone knew globally, and move us down to this swamp area in DC and call it District of Columbia, which has their meaning on it, and take out 10 square miles of land? Who gave them the authority to do this? They came in and did this. That's why Monroe was saying in 1820, he's 1820, guys. That's not even 30 years from Lincoln or from Washington to Monroe. And he's saying, if you keep allowing this infiltration, you won't have a country because they're bringing all the tyranny in from Europe.
Well,
so what do they do?
We brought sanity in the last 3 weeks to Washington, D.C. Look at what one effort can do to do away with crime in a city.
Yes.
Enforcing the laws and arresting those that break the law and the illegals and so on. I mean, it's just brilliant. I think, Sheila, now the next move, we'll see what happens on 9/11, but I think Trump is going to move into maybe Memphis and New Orleans first before they go into Chicago, because Pritzker out there, that moron, he's been saying, well, they never go into the red states. Well, I think Trump will trump him on this one and go into New Orleans, which has a very high murder rate, as Memphis does. So that would probably be a good move. I'd recommend that. And then, okay, Pritzker, we're coming to Chicago.
We aired an interesting video in the last few days. It has Pritzker standing in Chicago, trying to undercut Trump's intention of inserting some help into Chicago.
Right.
Well, I wish he'd been here before. I wish he'd ever visited. And as he's speaking, he kind of looks around, and what's behind him? The Trump building in Chicago with Trump's name on the side of it. And so, Pritzker can't help but make himself look a fool sometimes.
Well, he is a fool.
He is. He's also tied in. We mentioned in other conversations recently this money flow coming from places like USAID and others. Well, I believe there are 60 different NGOs tied to either members of his family or close associates, amounting to, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through all these NGOs that he and his cohorts have influence over. Well, it's all you have to see in order to understand why they don't want people messing in their business in Chicago, and why, a city that has lost more people, as I understand it, than we lost in both the Afghan and the Iraq conflicts, wars. More people have died in Chicago than died in those. And it's like, something has to be done, and it has to be done very soon. So we'll see how he plans. He's been taunting, I think, in some ways, Pritzker. And I do think that there's the potential for movement there in the not distant future.
Yep.
Bill, I got to tell you, trolling. He loves the word trolling, and he does indeed. Trolling. And the names he has for people. Let's go back in history. Native Americans, Pocahontas. I mean, who would have thought of calling somebody Pocahontas? I mean, he has a humor that that I think is helping with the generations is to understand they're not who you think they are. Who they tell you are is not who they really are.
Yeah.
And what they're showing you and telling you is not what they want you to see.
Well, it was interesting in the last couple of days, Gavin Newsom posted an X post, and he tried to copy Trump's style, calling people low energy or low IQ. And it just didn't come off the same way. He's is certainly not qualified to be poking holes in other people,
Mm-hmm.
The guy that didn't make sure that they had enough water to be able to put out fires in LA is not able to do some of the things that the Trump and his teams can do.
Well, that was all done. All of this is done on purpose. That's what people understand. When you sign a mortgage, you don't typically own the land under your house. And when they put you in HOAs, it changes it also. So you don't have mineral rights, but when your house burns, if you don't own the land underneath the house and you still have to pay your mortgage because the insurance company backed out a week and a half or 2 weeks before they knew that there was going to be a fire. I mean, this whole thing, when you think of the whole thing, that's why Karen Bass is like, well, you're not coming back to this land. We're going to take eminent domain and we're going to do something else with this land. People are like, well, you can't do something else. That's my land. No, you signed a mortgage on a house. You didn't sign anything for any land. You don't own any land.
Mayor Bass has been found to have accepted, I think, $1 million from Chinese national operatives and then gave them slots in her government, as I understand it currently. And so I think she's got some stuff to worry about herself at the moment.
They've done this with the Chinese. Being in San Diego since 7/3 of 73, I watched all this happen. They let them buy a house, tear it down to the ground, all throughout California. A lot of it is up by Sacramento, San Jose, San Francisco. They can build a house from property line to property line. And they're doing it. And they're big. They look kind of like a mansion because they're so big. Because this is the law. The law is 2 people per bedroom, 1 on your living room sofa. And they don't overextend that. But that's how the president just called it chain migration. And I don't want to get into all these topics today, but this is the stuff that happens in the identity theft process, is that they bring all of these people in and then they house them and you don't know who's in that house. Yeah. And you don't know who's paying for that house, because you and I can't use a trust, but the title companies can. And the title companies were working with the Chinese that they could buy their houses in a trust. So you don't even know who the owner is that's putting all these people in this house. This has been happening in California since the 80s.
So if I understand what you both are sharing, part of this is public knowledge of this issue.
Yes.
And part is hopefully getting to the right people within, we'll call them within the Trump circle, that can ask for focus and action here. Does that make sense? Are these two of the priorities? So
focus and action. Absolutely.
So to that point, I want to help reinforce for folks. Here's how you learn more about what is going on. This article has been published up on the General Substack. You can find it here. You can see the URL at the top of the page, or if you can simply use your phone and scan that QR code on the right-hand side, that will take you directly to the article. Read it. It's not very long. It's very understandable. And where you can, send the message through the channels that you have available to you, as we will do, to the folks that we hope will get the message to the administration and hopefully to Trump himself, to be able to take action and get the right people involved. So
thank you, Bill.
You bet. You bet. Is there anything else that we would like to discuss while we're here together? Sounds like there's plenty of depth to get to.
Well, we did something when we started on the FBI chapter last week, and it shocked people. We did 2 quick videos, General. We put I just thought it would be an interesting thing to do because it's in the new book, where the man in the arena was a speech by Teddy Roosevelt, President Teddy Roosevelt, who was in when everything happened in the banking with JP Morgan in 1907. And he said, the government's you and me. And the man in the arena is the one who's willing to take the hits. And that's why President Trump has repeatedly said they're not after me. I'm just protecting them from getting to you. And I'm not saying this exactly as he has said it, but
Pretty close,
in essence, the what, sir?
That's pretty close.
It's pretty close. And so he's taking all the arrows. And so what we did at the beginning, we shared that picture, and then the they're very short, the little video of man in the arena and what that really means, because everybody wants Trump to help them with everything going on. And that's not what we're trying to ask. What we're trying to ask is we need to make the public aware. We need the pardon of innocence to clear their names so they can get jobs. And then we need locally to help these people because they've lost everything. Yeah. So they have no home to go to. And they got out in January, February, all but 9 that we're aware of are not free yet. But that's what we need to do. So that they are now the man in the arena in a negative process. And Trump has been up against this. And so I do want to de-escalate the process of coming to DC to protest against Trump, because that's what these other groups are doing that want to have a coup against America and get him out. That thing that came out from the Flare group that you showed, Bill, said conviction. It didn't just say impeachment, conviction, and removal. Yeah. And that is not what Americans want. And we have proven it again and again and again. So man in the arena, we put at the beginning of the interview, and then at the end, we put if. And wasn't it amazing, Bill? The very next day, Dan Scavino came out with the big letters if that had the whole
Isn't that
Rudyard
interesting?
Kipling, he put the whole thing in the 2 letters I and F, and then he came out with the video with it to retweet it. And so it was so profound because we had just done that the day before. And
there are no coincidences in life, I don't think.
So I don't know. Do you think those would be beneficial, General,
Sure.
to insert those to let the people be encouraged that we're all in the arena? It's not take it all to the president and have the president fix it. We're all in the arena. What can we do?
We're in the stands, in the arena. We're on the field of battle. And what you were just saying about impeachment and all of this stuff, it's not going to happen. Trump is going to prevail because he's right.
Yes.
Yep. I do have those videos available if we want to show them.
Do you think that would be all right, General?
Sure.
Okay. All right. I will go ahead and show these, and then we'll come back and we'll close.
Okay.
Is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
By Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but are none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Wow.
Wow.
Both very inspiring videos.
Yes.
Well, in climbing through, we have to have the Father's help.
We do indeed.
When the FBI asked me December of 2012, after they erased me from the system as an American again in 24. But when they did it, I went and visited them, and I said, I heard you had to remove me from every angle of our system, and that's a lot of effort. And so whatever effort you had to do, I don't know why this has happened. And he said, we just have one question. We just want to know, how are you coming through all this and not committing suicide? And I said, the answer is easy, God. How many more are left in the week? Because in our article, I included some of the facts, because it's important to know the facts behind what they're saying. One of the suicides was a veteran who supposedly shot himself in the chest with his own shotgun. Can anyone imagine a shotgun? You're holding a shotgun and you're killing yourself with your own shotgun, and all you're doing is shooting yourself in the chest. You're not blowing yourself up. Because shotgun has that kind of power. And a woman who was a voice the night before and very involved. And after she said, I want you to know I'm not suicidal. And the next day she was found dead on the floor of her home. There are things like this that have been happening, and bringing all of this to the light will hopefully encourage people that even if we can't do much, we can do something. And we can find out who these people are in our community. We can just go and apologize to them that we didn't know the truth before. Just letting people know that you're sorry that you said the things you said about them or to their family, or the people in the schools that said horrible things to the children because now their dad's a felon or their mom's a felon, and so they depart from them. And that puts curses on young children that sometimes don't get corrected in their lifetime. There are layers of this that each of us can do something. So we're not just saying we're going to give this to the president and he's going to make everything great, which is what people expect of him. If you have an opportunity to help anybody in this, if you're prompted by our Father to do something, we thank you for everything you can do for any one of them.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Thank you, Sheila. Great words.
Yes, very
Bless
much.
you,
Sheila.
General. Having your name with this, I'm so deeply honored, sir, that we can do something.
Absolutely. We're going to prevail one way or the other. And
Yes.
sometimes, Sheila, Bill, we don't have to do it today, but I'll tell you how the FBI tried to entrap me before Mike Flynn.
Okay.
I think we should. I think we should.
We don't have time today, but I'll tell you how they tried to entrap me. You won't believe what they did.
Oh,
But I
Do you need more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
Well, I thought we were ending the program now.
They're doing just a little bit after, but we still have about 10 minutes, don't we, Bill?
I will work with you two. You tell me what you would like to do.
Well,
Because General, people know me, but they don't know. They think that everything's always been great for you. That's all I hear, General. And I don't think they understand that you were targeted also.
I am happy to devote time either now or in another segment, whatever you would like to do.
I'll make it very close. I got a call that I thought was from a friend who said somebody wants to get in touch with you. He's a retired officer. And so a couple of days later, I get a call that this gentleman wanted to meet with me. So I said, well, we'll meet down at the soccer field, because I didn't want to invite her to my house. I didn't know who it was. And so I went down there, and here's this guy dressed in like hunting gear, from Cabela's. And so I shook his hand and I patted him down a little and found out he was carrying. So he told me that he had served in special forces, and he had an East European accent. And so he said, well, after today's meeting, I want to have a second meeting and I'll discuss with you a plan. But here's a burner phone and we'll use this to communicate. And then the next time we meet, I'll give you a computer that will be a totally confidential type of thing that we can communicate with. So anyhow, I called one of my security guys on that Tuesday. I says, this guy wants to meet again on Thursday. And so I went down there. He was sitting at the this picnic table at our local soccer field. There was no car, so he must have walked through the woods to get there. So anyhow, he said, we have a billionaire in New York who's supporting Trump, and what we want to do is put together a group to take out Hillary Clinton. I said, take out Hillary Clinton? Yes, we want to make sure she disappears. And so Mike, who's with me, said, oh, General Vallely, you can't get involved with that. And so I told Mike I dismissed the guy. And anyhow, it turned out he was using a false name from a Nazi special ops guy that worked in Africa. And he was using a false name. So anyhow, the next week I get called to our local sheriff's office. And we had Secret Service there and FBI and about 10 of us sitting in this room. So they pulled out this folder and they had about 5 pictures in there. And white wing extremists is what they were calling it. And they wanted me to identify this guy. Well, he was wearing a hat. And so I looked at these pictures and I said, well, this guy sort of looks like him, but I can't tell because he's wearing a hat and the face isn't sure. So we closed it up. I turned the burner phone over to him. And so anyhow, a week later, because I didn't bite on him, I got a call from the FBI in Helena, Montana. They'd called the investigation off. I knew then and there it was a total setup. If I said, sure, I'm going to join this group and we're going to take it down Hillary Clinton, guess what? I've been like that. And Mike was a little naive in meeting them within the White House. But so anyhow, that's how they try to set me up.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Anyhow, it's
all right. Thank you both for being here. Any final words for folks as we turn the actions over to them, hopefully to follow up wherever their paths will take them?
Keep positive. We're pulling the country together. Don't get drawn to the left by these ideologues who are trying to tear our country down. Stay smart, stay informed.
He
Sheila?
said it.
Okay.
He said it. Just
All
remember,
right.
you're here to make this on earth as it is in heaven. And you were always going to be in a battle. You are in the arena. We're standing with you.
Yep.
We love you. Thank you for doing whatever you can. We're so blessed to know so many people are getting in action and helping each other because they've done everything to divide and conquer. We've got to get unity back. And that's why they did all this to these families. But how many of your families were impacted by all of this? And so we just thank you. We thank you as being we the people in order to form a more perfect union. That's our whole goal here, is to make sure that we understand how to come together, stand firm in truth, and do everything we can to bring this Republic for America back in full swing with truth, based upon the scriptures, based upon the rule of law. When he held up the Bible that night, the president made it clear, this is our rule of law. And he said, there's so many of you out there who say you're Christians. In fact, there's a majority. How did you let this happen? And the thing is, it happened many generations ago. So much truth is being revealed. Never since the garden have we had such an amazing opportunity to handle this. And so whatever you can do, we just thank you in advance for whatever that means. And we thank you for taking on the truth of what's really happening and why all of that happened on January 6th and why they handpicked the people to take off the streets and away from the voting polls.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both. We'll look forward to hopefully the next time the three of us can get together and share some additional truth, and hopefully the outcome of what will hopefully be resolved or changed in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.